Quick question, how are your calluses? Look, guitar can be tough as nails, and there's so much information online and so little organization and so few consistent threads of study to help players. So in this video, I want to share with you 7 essential guitar chords for beginners, and these are going to form the foundation for playing millions of songs, and you'll also use them as a pro as well. So let's get started with the good old D major chord. Now, in my humble but accurate opinion, this is one of the best first chords to try because it's not too difficult as, say, like a full C chord like this, because your fingers can stay relatively close and it sounds great as well. So to play this D major chord, we're going to put our index finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. Then put your ring finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, and then your middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 1st string. So we've got like this little triangle here, and then we're gonna strum from the D string or the 4th string down. Now you wanna try to avoid strumming all the strings. It's gonna sound a little muddy. We're just gonna keep that strum hand tamed and play from the 4th string down. And that's going to be your D major chord. Up next is a great chord to transition to from D major. This is G major. Now if you notice, when you go from D to G, you actually have a note in common here, or a fretted note in common. You leave down that middle finger. Now there's a lot of ways you can play G. Some use bar chords or, this kind of folk style, but I would recommend playing this one. It's going to sound great for a lot of pop music and rock songs. We're going to play the 3rd fret of the low E with the middle finger here. Then the index goes on the 2nd fret of the A string, then open D, open G. Then your ring finger goes on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, and your pinky goes on the 3rd fret of the 1st string. Strum all 6 strings like this. For number 3, next try A major. Now this is a perfect complement to these last 2 chords, the D, the G, and then we have an A here. This one's played from the 5th string down. We've got the open A string. Then I put my middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. Index goes right underneath it. Ring finger goes right underneath that. They're all on the 2nd fret there. Then you can play the open 1st string. Now there's a lot of different ways players finger this chord, but I recommend this one. If you're playing rock, or if that's too difficult, you could try it just with one finger like this. But when I do that, I don't play the high E. You could, I just don't really let that ring out. As usually just play it like a rock chord like that. But this is going to be the best way, I think, to start with. So you play from the 5th string down, got that A major there. Now these 3 chords, D, G, and A, are the most common chords in the key of D. If you've struggled to understand the fretboard for rhythm and lead, then go to johnmclennan.com/fretboard guide and grab my free fretboard guide PDF. This is going to show you these chords that I'm playing. You'll see them on the neck, and they can actually expand into unlocking the entire fretboard. This works for any style. Just go to johnmclennan.com/fretboard guide and grab that as my gift to you. Up next, we've got an E major chord. Now, I think this is just one of the greatest chords, period. It's optimizing the range of the guitar. We've got this is the lowest note that we can play, and we're going through all 6 strings. It sounds super full, and it's not that difficult to play. Let's check it out. We've got the open E string, then the 2nd fret with our middle finger there on the A string. Then put your ring finger right underneath that on the 2nd fret of the D string. Then index finger on the 1st fret of the G string. Then play open B and open E. So you got all 6 strings being played, strum from 6 down like this. All right, another thing to think about at this stage is how chords can just easily change into another chord. So let me give you an example of this. We've we've got that E major chord we just did. And if you want to make it an E minor, then all you do is you simply take off that index finger. Check it out. Now this one simple change turns the quality from major to minor. And it's slightly more just melancholic sounding, and it's used in a ton of songs. So again, you've got open, 2, 2, open, open, open. Number 6 is A minor, and this continues on that idea of having a chord and then just sort of making simple changes to it and getting more chords. Let me show you what I mean. If we go back to that E chord, and we just shift the whole chord down one string. So we start from the 5th string and play open, 2, 2, 1, open. We've got an A minor chord. And again, this is a phenomenon of guitar where you can just kind of move chords around, you know, and you can get different chords. But it's important to keep in mind that as we go from that E major and shift it down, the chord, it doesn't just become A major, it becomes A minor, which is a different sound, right? A major chord has sort of a happier sound to it. A minor chord has a more melancholic, like some people say it's sad. I don't think it's necessarily sad, but those are just common ways that people relate those sounds. All right, for number 7, I saved the hardest one for last, and this is the one that a lot of players first learn. It's actually C major. But I don't think it's one of the best to start with because, you know, when you begin playing, your hands haven't really stretched out yet, and often getting that, particularly that ring finger into position and getting the C can be tough. So we're gonna play from the 5th string down. We're gonna play the 3rd fret on the 5th string with the ring finger, then the middle finger goes on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. We've got open G, then the index finger goes on the 1st fret of the 2nd string, and open E. We're gonna strum from the 5th string down. You don't wanna play the low E. Now, as I said, getting that ring finger there can be tricky. So there's a way to make chords even simpler, and what you can do is you can remove notes. You can kind of par them down a little bit. So if that's too tough, you can play from the 4th string down just with these 2 notes. And that's gonna be definitely easier, but the only problem is you have to be careful with your strum hand because you don't wanna play all these strings, so you have to be able to strum from 4 down. So again, that process can be repeated with other chords to make them simpler. However, I would start with these 7 and do them in order and see how that goes. If it is too hard, you can always, you know, kind of par down the chords like what I was showing you, but I think these are great ones to start with, especially as a beginner player, because again, you're gonna use them in millions of songs. So there you have it. Those are my top 7 guitar chords for beginners. Now, if you've struggled to understand the fretboard for rhythm and lead, then go to johnmcclennan.com/fretboard guide and get your hands on my free fretboard guide PDF. This is gonna show you, you'll see actually a lot of these chords written out on this PDF, and then you'll also be able to see the scales that connect with them and how you can use them to unlock the fretboard, because the entire fretboard can actually be unlocked with simple basic chords that you learn on your very first lesson. And this is completely for free. Just go to johnmcclennan.com/fretboard guide and grab that now as my gift to you. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you might like this one next.